Welcome back to News and Views right here on Salam Media. Our last story of the day is a very, very significant one and one that's a bit closer to home. A landmark judgment from South Africa's Constitutional Court that brings long-awaited justice to thousands of citizens, many of whom were unknowingly stripped of their South African citizenship simply because they acquired citizenship elsewhere. The ruling declares Section 6.1 of the Citizenship Act unconstitutional and invalid, marking a major win for constitutional rights and for nearly 2 million South Africans living abroad who now have a clearer path to reclaim their identity, their rights, and their place in the country they still call home. And joining me now is a specialist immigration lawyer, Ashraf Essop, to help us unpack what this all means, both legally and practically, and for affected South Africans at home and abroad, and those that have quite literally been stripped of their South African citizenship. Ashraf, assalamu alaikum, jazakallah so much. Always a pleasure having you on the show. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Very well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. I think, Ashraf, first off, let's chat a bit about this ruling. How significant is it, both from a legal standpoint and also in terms of general human impact?
I think the most important thing is that the Constitutional Court has declared or upheld the Supreme Court of Appeal's decision to declare this particular section unconstitutional. The background to which is that in 1995, the Citizenship Act was amended, and that provided, as you've indicated, an automatic loss of citizenship if an applicant, a South African citizen, through a voluntary act other than marriage or being born there, acquires the citizenship of another country, resulted in an automatic loss of South African citizenship. Now, in the High Court, it was argued in Pretoria on behalf of the department that this was not a drastic measure because there were checks and balances built in. The checks and balances refers to an application made to the Minister of Home Affairs to try and retain your citizenship before you actually go and obtain citizenship of another country. So there was a mechanism in place. However, at the Supreme Court of Appeals, it was argued on behalf of the DA that many people were not aware of this provision and the automatic loss of citizenship was too drastic. In the case of Mr. Plaatjes, one of the parties cited by the DA, Mr. Plaatjes was a South African citizen and moved to London and worked there, ultimately married, had a family and acquired UK citizenship. At some stage in his life, he applied for a renewal of the South African passport. And I must just pause to mention in terms of the Act, the Passport Control Act, you can only enter and leave South Africa on a South African citizen passport if you're a dual citizen. So Mr. Plaatjes applied, and then he was told, "Oh, hang on, I think we've lost you. You've lost your citizenship." And he said, "How did I mean? I didn't know about this." Well, they said it's automatic. So you see that automatic loss of citizenship is the one that troubled the courts the most. And they said citizenship is such an important component of the Constitution because Section 2 declares that everyone is entitled to citizenship. And there's a whole gateway of rights encompassed in the Bill of Rights, such as the right to a passport, the right to enter and leave the Republic freely, that are all attached to citizenship, that an automatic loss could not be tolerated. So from a legal perspective and upholding the constitutional rights of persons, the decision was absolutely correct and necessary.
Mm, Ashraf, one thing that really bothers me as I was reading on about this case is the fact that it dragged on for nearly a decade. Why do you think it took this long for our courts to strike down a provision that the Concord now calls utterly irrational?
Yeah, the utterly irrational attaches to the decision itself, which could be capricious, because there is no legal justification to limit a person's right in terms of Section 36 of the Constitution. Therefore, such a piece of legislation is declared irrational. With regard to the matter coming from Pretoria to the Constitutional Court, the legal process is extremely, extremely slow. Although the department did not oppose the application, they initially indicated, it would be so. The court rolls are really, really congested. The judge president of Gauteng has called upon parties to try and mediate and settle their matters before coming to court just to ease the congestion. So it's nothing more than a very, very busy court roll.
Mm, No, I think very, very important to mention that. The court also raised a concern over the unfettered power of the minister to decide who gets to retain citizenship. Do you think this ruling will trigger broader reform of our immigration and nationality laws, which have been under the spotlight and under a microscope now more than ever?
So let's just deal with the capriciousness or the discretion afforded to the minister. Let's say you applied under the old regime to acquire citizenship of another country and that was refused. Now what? There's
Mm,
no reasons for that. It's a decision of a single individual of a very important constitutional right. So that deals with that. Now, with regard to immigration and citizenship reform, that's certainly in the pipeline. There's been a white paper on immigration reform since 2017. It's being slowly, slowly unpacked. You see various, for example, in terms of immigration, the Immigrations Act, work permits are no longer easily available. You've got to go through a rigorous 100-point check system. So that has happened. With regard to refugee reform, there's actually a suggestion in the 2017 paper that refugees will not be allowed free movement in the republic. It's envisaged that there will be camps at the border post until the application has been dealt with.
mm,
So the immigration and look, laws generally are not static. They move all the time depending on the circumstances. So those are certainly one of the things. The second is the conduit directly to citizenship through naturalization. Let's say a foreigner is married to a South African citizen. You get a temporary residence visa for 5 years. You're entitled to apply for permanent residence thereafter. And having sat with the permanent residence for another 5 years, you become eligible to apply for citizenship. So you can see that conduit to citizenship, from the state's point of view, is very important because it could affect the ultimate demographics of the country. It could change the voting pattern. So they're very, very careful who and how citizenship will be extended to now and in the future. Of course, the minister retains the discretion to deprive you of your citizenship. For example, this could happen to dual citizens or South African citizens who serve in an army against the republic, the country that is at war against the republic. Well, that in that case, you could lose your citizenship. And the
mm.
definition of war, as we know, can be very, very wide. The cyber war, there's all kinds of different definitions. So the minister could have that discretion or has that discretion.
Mm, mm. I want to focus now on the practicalities of this ruling. For those who did lose their citizenship unknowingly, what practical steps can they now take to have their status reinstated, or is it automatic, or there's a process that they need to apply for?
My understanding of the judgment is that it's retrospective in effect until October 1995, and it covers all those people that have lost their citizenship automatically. So now you deemed still to have been a citizen. So
Mm,
I think the easiest way for you to obtain your documentation again reflecting your citizenship is to apply for an ID and a passport. And from there, you'll know if the departmental records have been amended or not. Now, the thing is, we don't know how many people do hold dual citizenship, but we can guess that a very small minority of South African population, those that are that I have European ancestry, or some of them that go to the Middle East, they would be affected by such a ruling, and they would be the first to try and access their identities and retain their citizenship. But this judgment really doesn't affect majority of the population. I guess 80% of the people have just note the judgment and move on.
mm, mm. Mm. Some people may still be, unaware that they were affected, and I think you touched on it a bit. Some of the signs or indicators that someone may have lost their South African citizenship without knowing. So, would just applying for a South African passport or an ID be, the one and only step to find out?
No, there is a process called determination of citizenship. So if you suspect that you may have automatically lost it, because by now people know how they've acquired the second citizenship and they know of the ruling, and they would have been alerted to the loss previously, or if they were still in the dark about it, if they simply file an application for determination of South African citizenship and await the outcome from Home Affairs, then they would know if they've lost it indeed. But now, my understanding is the process is automatic.
Mm,
All those people that are affected by the decision, it's up to the Department of Home Affairs to reverse this. The court didn't make a clear order in that regard, but this is automatically what happens because the department is the sole agency or government department entrusted with our security and identity details.
mm. And just lastly, before I let you go, Ashraf, this ruling also affects people that are also still living in South Africa, who might have acquired a second nationality. How should they proceed now, in light of this judgment?
Well, the judgment covers them as well. We know a number of South African individuals might have acquired Turkish citizenship. There's a whole lot of programs out there to offer you second citizenship by investments. There's the Caribbean islands. There's some other efforts in Eastern Europe. So those parties that had applied, if they had not applied to the minister before taking up dual citizenship, they were part of the old regime. Now they are covered, and the court has ordered there is no deemed loss of citizenship. So their citizenship is intact and they just continue being dual citizens.
No, definitely. I think we're going to leave it on that note. Ashraf, always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for your insights and for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
There you go. That was a specialist immigration lawyer, Ashraf Essop, helping us make sense of a constitutional judgment that restores more than just the legal status of South Africans who have lost their citizenship, but I think it restores identity, belonging, and most importantly, the rights of thousands of South Africans who never asked, to lose the citizenship in the first place. You can engage with us on our various social media platforms. What do you think? Do you think this ruling should have happened long time ago? Do you think, those that have dual citizenship should denounce their South African citizenship? What are your thoughts on this matter? Or are you one of those people that were affected by this, and you might not have known, and this opened your eyes to that reality that you might have citizenship of another country, whether in Europe or the Middle East or whatever part of Africa, and now you didn't know that you've denounced unknowingly your South African citizenship, and what does this ruling mean for you? What does it change? Because I think it's a very, very interesting one. But what's concerning is it's been going on for 10 years, man. I think our courts and our justice system really needs a shakeup. You can't have such important cases dragging on for so long. I mean, the loss of citizenship and essentially becoming stateless is something that is of concern. We have come to the end of the show. Around 3 minutes after 10. So not too bad this time around. Thank you so much for staying with us for the past 2 hours and 3 minutes. I'll be with you again tomorrow for the Thursday edition of News and Views. What's coming up on Salam Media later today? Well, there's Wednesday nights with Inayat Wadi. Really brilliant conversations that I had there from 7 until 9. And there's going to be, roundtable discussions. And I think one of the topics that will be covered today is Pakistan and India, the escalation of tensions between those two countries, and ultimately what it all means for the world. These are two powerful powerful, powerful countries. These are countries that are, have nuclear capabilities. And the last night, if you haven't read or heard about it, India reportedly fired 4 missiles that were intercepted and downed by Pakistan. So this is one of the key topics and conversations that are going to be had later today on Wednesday nights with Inayat Wadi from 7 until 9. I'll be back with you again on Thursday, and I'm going to leave it here for now from myself, Salilo, and the rest of the team. It's Shap Shap. Kalbona